we made a critical error in somebody. We had a chef at the time that was like, I think we're gonna take up the cheese fries a little bit. We're gonna elevate them. That's the term we use in the business. If you didn't know, elevate. We're gonna elevate the cheese fries. And I was like, well, that's a bad idea. Just don't do it. Like, don't mess with the cheese fries. And it was like fancy like cheese sauce and not like just burnt cheese on fries. I was like, you're gonna get hell for that. And sure enough, it was
Don't
like
change the bestseller.
It was like free the cheese fries. It was like the campaigns that go on, and like the kids heard that, like, your dad just ruined Snow Basin. Cheese fries are different. I was like, okay, let's just change back to cheese fries, please.
Welcome to Brain Stoke. I'm Tom Telford with Preston Niederhauser. We are nestled into the Cinnabar Lounge with Davy Ratchford of Snow Basin Ski Resort. Davy, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, we're probably in my second favorite place on the mountain.
Yeah?
The Cinnabar Lounge.
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
On Earth.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Wait, is the bathrooms number one?
Yeah, of course. Have you been in them?
They're pretty good.
They're pretty amazing. Davey, how many shots of proper number 12 do you need to climb in the ring with Conor McGregor?
2. One for before and one for after, I think.
Only one to get in?
That would be an experience.
Yeah, how long would you run? Or could you take a single shot?
No, on that one, here's what you do. You move in fast because the leg kicks would just destroy you, right? So you close the distance quick.
Okay.
You just grab hold of them.
And hang on.
Bite them. It's the only way to win that one. I've thought it through.
Yeah, I'm sure it sounds like you have.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing that you
I
gotta move
know
in
you've
fast.
thought it through.
Oh,
In
all
fact,
those
I know
scenarios,
you've dreamt about it for
100%.
years.
Yeah.
Well, 2 shots. That surprises me.
Yeah, well, the second one
Really?
is to just cheer your
to just-
victory.
yeah.
You did it.
I love
It's
it.
pretty good.
What a lead in. I'm excited to do this. I have to be honest. This has been up the top of my list for a while for so many reasons.
So nice of you to say.
So many reasons, yeah. Partially because Davy is an old friend. Go back about, 12, 13 years when we were young family fathers trying to just figure out business, careers, family, staying married.
Those were
all
good times.
It was. It was really good, but it was interesting. I don't know how many years ago, I'm going to call it 6 or 7 years, when you reached out and you said, hey, I am taking the job as the GM at Snow Basin. And for me, it was this whole kind of circle back to my roots situation, because I have so much respect for you and a good friend, but my path comes directly through Snow Basin. I grew up ski racing here, was on the youth race team. And my mental health story is correlated to Snow Basin, which means that my path of progression through my life comes through this resort. So it's a special place, a special guy. So thank you for doing this with us. I'm excited to tell some of that story, as we kind of go through this today. But Davy, go back to your roots. Davy, where does even the name Davy come from?
Oh, that's a great story. So, given name is David, and I'm the youngest of 6, born in Dublin, Ireland. And how the name came to be, so there was no men allowed in the wards back then. It was like 16 women to a room and 8 across from 8, and you just have a baby in front of other women, and so there's no men in the room. So the men are at the local, the pub, and a call will come, hey, it's a boy. So that's what happened to me, and call came, and my dad's the oldest of 13 kids, so there's only a couple of names you can choose. And so he sits next to some guy, stranger, and my mom said, well, what should we call him? And he says, some guy next to him says, hey, what's your name? Some drunk Irish random fella. He says, I'm David. And he's like, what do you think of David? He named me after some random drunk guy at a bar. And so upon birth, immediately David becomes Davy. There's not a Dave in Ireland. And so Davy was it. And then professionally, I don't know if it's helped me. I think people think I answer to baby a lot. I don't know. So, yeah.
Oh, Davy running the Snow Basin resort, and people are asking, like, is he like 18. Like, how old is Davy?
He's old enough.
Are you, are you the youngest of the six?
Yeah.
You're the young. You're
Yeah,
the
I'm the
baby.
baby, yeah.
Okay. How was that?
It was great because you know, my parents worked and they were gone all the time, and my sisters did a lot of the raising, and it was you know, it's my brothers are boxers, they're tough buggers, so like I just you learn to live a little bit. We were very very poor, and you know, I slept in the same bed with my brother till I was 14, which he was 18. It's worse for him, but you know, it's just we just had a different life. So, but we were happy.
Yeah. Does a picture exist of you probably with makeup and a dress on from your sisters?
I bet there is one of those actually, and there's not a lot of photos out there. But now that you say that, yeah, they babied me.
Yeah,
for sure.
I figured they probably did. How much older were they?
Yeah, they're about 15 years older than me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they were 15 when you were a baby. Yeah.
They're twin sisters. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What'd your dad do for a living?
He was a fireman in
Okay.
Ireland, and then my mom was a cleaning lady. She cleaned homes and cleaned toilets for her whole life.
Yeah.
She was a maid. Yeah.
So you came to the United States. We'll go back there, but
Yeah.
I'm just for some timeline. How old were you when you came to the U.S.?
13.
You were 13. Okay. So you've got some good memories still of Ireland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
for
yeah.
sure.
All my family's there.
Yeah.
Like on both sides. So yeah, I have a massive family in Ireland, and some of them you have to be careful of, and you know, it's Dublin.
Why? Why do you got to be careful?
You know, we're of the people. It's just a very different. You know, I think they're scrappers and you know figured life out, but I think everybody on my side of the family are just hardworking, honest people in that way, but they're scrappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the people.
All Irish are scrappy.
I
At
think
least
they-
that's
Yeah, I think historically, right? You have an edge because you've been beat down for a long time, right? I think anyone can relate to that. It's a tough environment too,
Yeah.
physical. Like it's just an interesting place to be. It's gorgeous, and I think everyone. I used to be the worst tour guide of Ireland of all time. I'd be like, oh, it's rough. And then I realized, no, it's actually an incredibly beautiful country with really genuine people that care, and I think that shines through in just all throughout the Irish culture.
yeah.
And a penchant for whiskey. It's true too.
So you came 13.
Yeah.
And you land in, of all places, Logan.
Yeah, Logan, Utah.
How? How Logan, or why Logan?
So at the time, it was crazy. My sister had married an American and came out west into Idaho, so we're driving through Utah. My dad knew somebody in Logan, Utah, so we diverted and went through the canyon. And at the time, you know, unemployed, no money, first in America, trying to figure out how to make it work. And there was a guy, we drove through Logan. He offered my dad a job. That valley is gorgeous.
Yep.
And at the time, we were in Virginia with my other sister, who had also married an American. And my dad, we just didn't have anything. So he said, you know, it's one of the most beautiful places he'd ever seen. And it was a chance to get a job as a carpenter. So he came out west, and that was it. We were only in Virginia for a little bit when we first came, and then settled in Logan.
Why did he want to leave Ireland originally?
Well, and it's part of the story because we were talking about success equation, but we didn't have anything really. I mean, like he's the oldest of 13 kids. It's him, 6 sisters, 7. The rest of them are all brothers.
Wow.
And he's an interesting character, my dad, right? So he left school. He was no education. He left school when I think he was 11. And so he got, you know, a very street education pretty quick. And I think an opportunity came for us to get exposed to America. My sister marrying an American and getting in through the green card lottery system moved up the ranks, and that's what got us in. Give me a second for water. But at the time, that was unheard of, right? Because you just didn't leave your people. But we didn't have anything really going for us. We had the key part of this story, and I don't know how religious this podcast gets, but at the time we were Catholic, and we joined the Mormon Church in Ireland. And that whole part of that story and how that came to be, which is probably something you'd want to know about because it's pretty wild. But at the time, there was a Mormon missionary came over and met my sister. That's how we connected to America.
Yeah.
Was through that channel. And that whole time period was wild, but we were able to eventually get to America.
I can't imagine. I mean, being the oldest of 13, your dad probably feels like a ton of responsibility for all his siblings, and then for the 6 kids and your mom. That had to be a significant decision that weighed on him. I would guess or think, or was it an easy decision? Like, we've got nothing. This is an easy decision. Let's move.
I can't imagine it was easy because it was. I mean, I think here's what I'll tell you about America. Like, it will chew you up pretty quick if you're not ready to like humble yourself. And my dad being in essence my age now with his kids, saying I'm going to give up everything that I know, which is he may not have a lot, but he's got his pride and he's got his name,
Right.
He's got his dignity, right, in Ireland, and then to come to America and put that on show real quick, because you don't have schooling, you don't have any background.
Yeah.
The metric system isn't the same. Everything. So as a carpenter in one spot, you're learning. Actually, I haven't thought about that.
Tape
right
measures
now.
are backwards.
This is what happened here. That stuff, I bet he just got kicked in the teeth a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't say bad. I saw it, and there was a level of humility there that you have to, there's a bitter pill of pride swallowing, guilt in America sometimes if you don't measure up.
Yeah.
And he went through that.
Did you recognize that? Did you understand that at 13, 14, 15, what your
Yeah.
dad was dealing with?
I think, there was a time, because we had a 2-bedroom place in Logan, and it was my mom and dad in a room, my sister in another room, me and my brother sharing the mattress in the corner, my brother on a couch, and that was it. And it was tiny, 600 square foot place. And I think at that time, now knowing what I know, having 4 kids myself, like, I think you'd come home, open up the door, and realize this isn't the way it's supposed to be, maybe, and because I think there's pride, even though that's not, we didn't have much more in Ireland. Everyone walked around you just looking you square in the eye because everyone's in the same situation.
Yeah.
Here, like, I remember a girl in high school reminding me, she's like, you wore that shirt yesterday, right? To me, and I was like, yeah, because I have 2 shirts, and she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I own 2 shirts, so most likely you did see me wearing it yesterday. Like, I was so oblivious to the comment that I was like, what's poor mean? Like, I just didn't know.
It never had clicked.
Never clicked until someone pointed it out to me that, so I just didn't understand that. And so I'm sure my dad, everyone has pride, right?
Yeah,
A little bit.
yeah.
And he worked hard.
Yeah.
We're going to double click on it. It's common.
Yeah.
So go into the psychology of yourself now, because you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this, over the years. But how does that shape you when you go back and you think about those early years and, the chip on the shoulder from Ireland a little bit, it's in the DNA there you talked about. And then you come to the U.S., Logan, and you start, in very kind of humble circumstances. And how does that feed into, your teenage years and your development years? And you start to cement this mindset of like, where am I in all of this? My family came, but where does that put me for my progression? So your journey.
Yeah. So I think my dad did something very clever. Even though we got into a house, my brother Garrett had left, so it was just me and my parents left. The rest of it had already moved on. We had an extra room in the house. And so my dad went to the university. Again, remember his background, not a lot of education. He went to the University of Utah State, and he went to the foreign student section, and he said, I will give rent-free any of these kids that come stay at my house if they tutor my kid. And so I had, over the span of 2 years, I had a Nigerian, I had a guy from India, I had a guy from Egypt, I had 2 Japanese guys, and there was one other. And they lived at my house. They lived across the hall from me at my house, my home house. And it was brilliant. Like, I squandered it because I was 16, right? So, like, I was,
Too cool for that, a little bit, yeah.
A little too cool for that. But then you come home and just learning about, like, living with the guy from Egypt during Ramadan, or living with the guy from India who had an arranged marriage and he had never seen the girl, and he's talking to me as a 16-year-old. Like, it just exposes you really quick to things. And so I was very lucky. Like, I think of just even that little decision that my dad made kind of set me to have a bigger worldview of things. And so just that worldview created an opportunity in my head. That's kind of, I always look at just doors opening and an opportunity in my head to be like, well, I can think bigger. And I had this random weird stuff. Like, I had every country in the world memorized, its capital, political leader. I could recall it like in any, and I had these weird quirky things that were going on in my head, but it was opening up doors to explore more, right? Like, just think bigger. And so my destiny, my stars were not this. No, like, it was follow, the path. And my dad diverted that path by getting a chance to get to America. And then I started looking at opportunities. And they were, there was no scholarship, there's no nothing like that. It was just get through it. So I worked 2 jobs all through high school. And I'd get home at like 1:30 at night. I ran a movie theater. I cleaned a bakery. I was the skipper's seafood parrot costume. I did so many jobs, just busting it out to try get ahead. And what that did, I paid for all, like, I never had to ask my parents for anything, which was, I was basically, financially cut off. There just wasn't an opportunity there. So I just worked, and I felt like I was the richest kid in high school.
Yeah.
Because I really did have more money than everybody because it was my money. Like, I worked it, and it was, so I was taking girls out on dates thinking I was the coolest guy in the world because I could throw a penny out to buy your Sizzler steak, steak. I thought I was amazing. But at the time, I just took every opportunity. So school worked out, college worked out, meeting Rachel obviously worked out. And I started fighting above my weight a little bit fairly early on.
Did you enjoy it? When you think about working your way through high school, you had money and you could date. Did you enjoy that, or does that make sense? Like, did you recognize around you that even though it afforded you some of the opportunities that you were working when maybe others weren't? Like, maybe your buddies were playing all the time or whatever. You're just, do you know what I mean? A little bit of resentment. Like, I don't get a free pass. I mean, was it there? Was the chip on the shoulder there?
It's funny because I still see all my high school buddies. Like, they're great. Like, I have amazing, great relationships that last forever, right? Because of those times. But yeah, I didn't go do all the stuff that they could go do. But it wasn't, I don't think economically there were a lot that diverse from me. I just think work was always a priority. And it was always, even if there wasn't anything pushing it, like, I just my ethos was about working. And I just always, and that's just, it has to be how I was raised, right? And seeing what I saw.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it came very easily. And I liked having my own money. Bob is money. I liked having my own money, right? So that I never went and asked. Because that shirt thing kind of messed me up. Like, the girl saying, you have 2 shirts. I was like, well, obviously that's not going to work out for me long term. So I've got to figure.
I need to acquire shirts.
I got to go buy some shirts.
My assets need to grow.
I guess, yeah. And then, but I was never. I don't know. You raised so simply that, like, that's. I just was very lucky that my priorities went to the right things, I think. But it's about seizing whatever random opportunity came. And I did. Like, I had the most random things just show up to create the path for me, and I faked so many of it to get in the door. But that's what you do.
What's your version of fake? Give us an example. I know how you lay on the Irish accent when needed. I mean, you can ham it up.
Yeah. Oh, sure. No, of course. No, you could. No, you can't. It doesn't help me not as much anymore in life. It did years ago. But not anymore. No, I think I just. It's more like what would happen is you'd have all these positions, all these things happen, and everybody else would, like, look at you because you'd have your chin up and maybe engaged. Maybe that was half of it. Like, if you look like you want to be in the room, they're like, well, what's special about this kid? And so I always had these opportunities, just leadership things, or I used to speak a lot. So I'd go out and do a lot of public speaking at a young age. And I'd always be in front of a situation where people would say, well, he's that natural leader, or that, always that would happen. And the whole time I'm thinking, if they only knew, if the shoe's going to drop and they're going to figure this out real quick, And I lived an entire life of that. Just because things just kept happening. And sure, I could work hard, and obviously there was a modicum of talent in there somewhere, but, like, the whole time I'm thinking, someone's going to figure this out.
Why?
Because it was too good. Like, and I had this whole thing about that all these things were happening, success, I guess, and it was because of a blessing, right? Like, this is happening because you're being a good boy.
Yeah.
And that messed with my head. I was like, well, who am I? Like, am I just a destiny, or am I? Because if so, then I'm going to be that smelly little Irish kid with 2 shirts forever, and I'm not going to have anything, outside of that. Because that's the history piece of my story, right? That is your destiny, right? Where unless you change it, that's the stars I woke up to, and so then you change them, and so yeah, I had to. That whole thing kind of sent me down this path of like, well, am I good? Do I deserve this?
Yeah.
And so it ended up being my boss, Kirsten Lynch is the president of Vail Resorts, CEO. She's brilliant. And she was in a meeting with me, and leadership roles were just rolling and things are good. And she's like, so when are you going to figure this out? And I was like, figure what out? She's like, that you're faking it and you need to stop. And I was like, how did she know? And she was great, and sent me down a journey of trying to figure out, that imposter syndrome thing. And I think so many people go through that, especially if your life comes at you fast, which it did for me, which was like leadership roles, big things in my career that just was like, this is way beyond me. And so you can just fill it in with narrative until it becomes something you need.
You're not the kind of guy, just to throw out, a mental health term like imposter syndrome without doing a lot of reading and analysis and self-reflection. So go further into that. Say more about imposter syndrome, what it is, and why that's part of your story.
So I think, there's a handful of pictures of me like that I had, and one of them, and almost all of them, I look like, for $1 a day, you could take care of this. Like, so there's a lot of those. I was like, I just looked like I had sawdust and snot, just coal on my face. I looked like a peasant, right? So I had those photos, and I was like, there's something like that's, if there's going to be, somebody's either going to have to take care of me and take me out of this situation, or finds you a different way. I don't know. And so I had this thing built up in my head about like, well, I can only go so far, right? And what can you actually do? I'm of average intelligence. I probably work harder than most, but it just wasn't the destiny, right? And so you form all these other narratives in your head to, get you through it. And ultimately what it is just, I felt like it just creates a massive amount of anxiety, because it's for me, at least in my case, the positions kept coming. The things kept happening. And so at one point you're realizing, well, all this stuff is successful. Everyone's telling you successful, but you have doubt the entire time, because but then 15 years go by and you realize, well, that's a career. Like maybe there's something here. Maybe it's not all
Maybe
destiny.
someone's not behind me coming for me.
Exactly. Or maybe I deserve a little bit of this success because I'm actually good at what I do versus, so my history was in front of my eyes at all times. Like I just didn't think it would ever click, and then it started to click, and I was like, well, maybe things are happening for you because you're good at what you do, and those opportunities are there because you've shown that you can do them. And so once you lean into that a little bit, you come out the other side you don't come out cocky in any way, because this stuff is hard, right? Like you have to be at your best at all times at this level, and I think if you make a mistake, you fall forward as you learn them. You just keep getting better and keep moving forward. So yeah, I think that imposter syndrome, I was able to put that away several years ago, and I'm glad I did, because I think there's a chapter where that's good, like that's a good thing in your life. But at some point you gotta just put it away and stop kidding anymore and be grateful.
It sounds like you got challenged on it a little bit, but for those who are listening in and maybe are experiencing something similar, is there anything that you intentionally did to address it head on? I mean, did you see someone? Did you,
I outed myself.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a system within Vail Resorts, a TED Talk system, and it was brilliant, like really well done. And I was challenged to do one, and I did it, and spoke in front of the entire leadership team of everybody, 780 people or something. and gave my TED talk on imposter syndrome, and it was funny the amount of people that came up and hugged me afterwards. Like the leaders of the company were like, yeah, I do too. I'm like, I think the reality is just sitting back and, you know, realizing vulnerability isn't a bad thing, especially if you're you know, if you're willing to put yourself out there, but you do it a little bit of a self-deprecating way, but also in a relatable way.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think at least with my team here and the culture that we create here is like, there's like, I'm out there with you doing everything else, you know, like I'll bust the tables and take the garbage out, whatever. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of value, I think.
So basically, Davy was before Brene Brown.
yeah. The man in the arena speech too. That was like, she's stealing. Was that Brene Brown that gave the Theodore Roosevelt man? It's an amazing speech.
I think today it's like the most watched TED Talk and YouTube clip in history or whatever. And yeah. Vulnerability.
Works
And
for me.
just that, you know, that's amazing. What was the title of your TED Talk to all of your peers in the Vail Resort system? Do you remember it?
I think it was something like, I try to remember, like, stop being fake. But I think it was something about fake. And I think that's the part, I'll tell you, just, you know, as life gets on and you keep going on, especially in a job where you're like on all the time, right? And I was when I was at Real, and like, but you know, I'm on all the time, right? And being able to not be on and be 100% your authentic self, like just in that, like I can be 100% me without filter, without worry, without it, whatever it might be, is one of the most liberating feelings ever. And you can't get there if there's just this stuff on you, like that, right? Like where you're just like, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. I feel good about what we've accomplished. Like I feel pride in the work that I've done. Having that feeling be authentic is versus there's a shade of something that you see through, or there's a glare within your purview of knowing if that's real or not, because you have something telling you it's all just a game and it's not real and you're not really deserving of any of this.
You know, it's interesting the way you just described that, because if I were to say, you know, the Davy I knew 10 years ago versus today, you know, to use Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife's, you know, terminology, who we just had on the podcast recently, she would say, yeah, Davy is self-authoring. He's now belonging to self versus trying to fit in. You know, I mean, that would be some of her terminology, but, you know, as a friend kind of watching it, I always loved you. I just thought you were the man. Like, I just thought you did cool stuff. And yet it's interesting to kind of watch you and sit with you now that it seems like you're as comfortable in your skin and in your own human, you know, position as I've ever seen you. That's cool.
Well, I think
not that you were like conscious or like, you know, struggle. I mean, you were on a fast track to like whatever you wanted, you know, but it seems like you're happy.
Why not you? Like, why not anyone, right? Like, I think that's the point of like, look, what's the recipe to get people ahead, whatever that might be? And it has to be something about, and I just, that changing your stars thing is just because it feels to me like, you know, whatever country you live in, you wake up and you see a certain star every day, it's in the same spot, right? And you just feel very consistent. You can change those things if you want to, right? But for me, I think there is that eternal chase for happiness. Like, what is it that makes you happy? And for me, it was thinking I could do more, be more than what those might be. And again, that's different for everybody. And there's no casting a judgment in that at all, right? Like, it's just whatever you feel is that you're improving and getting better. And so for me, that was it. And it is like there's the life side of this stuff and how you do it in a family and marriage and what works for you and yours, right? And then there's your career side. And for me, it was just trying to challenge myself. So yeah, getting to be a GM of a ski resort at you know, where I'm at this stage of life, and in a place like Snow Basin, that is as good as it, you know, it is as good as it gets. yeah, I feel incredibly. It's good to be proud, because if I'm not proud about it, then it doesn't say a lot to my wife, who sacrificed a shit ton of time and stress, right, and moved around for that stuff, and it doesn't say a lot about my parents, who gave up, a lot to get to America. It doesn't say a lot about my siblings, who changed my dirty diapers, and kept me out of fights, or put me in fights. One of the two. It doesn't say a lot about them if I'm not proud of this.
What now that you feel like you've got beyond the imposter syndrome thought process? You said it, but what makes you happy now?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I find it in a few things now. I think for the longest time I saw it in just one or two things, like affirmation, right? Like attaboys. And, I think that's probably the biggest thing, was just, whatever that might be. And luckily in my career, I was able to do some really cool things. And so the attaboys were there.
Yeah.
Right. Because like it was public stuff, and it was bigger things, and they were doing good. Things were like, there was success. And so the attaboys were there. And then you realize, well, that's a drug. That's a big drug. And it's one of those that you got to find a way to, like, there's not always going to be an attaboy. Real's going to lose sometime, right? Or there's not going to be any snow. And the attaboys stop real quick. So, like, you got to move on from what makes you happy there in that regard. So success and growth and whatever, right? Those things, if that was your motivator, that will seize up on you quick.
Yeah.
And so for me, I don't know, there's a lot of it. I like working out now. I like feeling a little healthier. That's a big one. Because I think life kicks you in the teeth, and you can get out of shape real easy if you focus so much on your career, which I know I did. I absolutely did that. Rachel makes me go dancing so much that my hips have gotten more agile. Like
They don't lie.
These hips they're lying a lot. They're lying to everybody. These hips are just, it is not, they're hurting. You know what? Honestly, I think one of the coolest parts of what I get to do, and I've been able to do, I've luckily had a career where there were things where I had people, I had leadership roles with people, and seeing them grow. And that sounds as cheesy but like seeing others change their stars a little bit.
Yeah.
And because it's one of those, it just is one of those, it's one of those things in the back of your head, you go, like, I know I had some small role to play. It's a very small role in some, and then others maybe a bigger role to play. And that person's like either ability to see themselves a little bit more, or step out beyond their possibilities or capabilities, and helping them a little bit. There's a lot, like I don't know. I probably think when I'm old and in that, scooter ripping around Florida in an old retirement place telling stories, I think I'd be thinking about that the most. When I think about work and career, and I'll think about people. Yeah. Because there's some fun stuff. Like, one quick one. My intern at Real, a guy named Elliot Fall, and I mean, I literally, I can't get into these stories, but like, we played he was an intern. Like, we were brutal. He was amazing, right? And it was at Real, and it was such a wild time back then. Elliot Fall is now the general manager of the soccer team. Like, he came up through the ranks, but put his time in, and is running the whole team side. And then my friend John Kimball's running the business side, but he's running the team side. Like, amazing. Like, absolutely brilliant. Like, there's so many stories like that of people that, like, you have this, and every time I see Elliot and we hug it out, he's like, thanks. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's so good. Like, I love that part where you just see people that have just done amazing things. And then when you see them later in life, it's just, I don't know, it's the best part of this. It really is the best part of it. Just seeing people getting better. And it's all around here. At Snow Basin, like, seeing the people that we have just improve and get better and love it is far and away the best part of things.
You can see that in your leadership style. You can tell just when you work, watching you here at Snow Basin, even the way that you post openly on social media or write letters, as the GM about your employees, you can tell that you're about your people, you know, that you're loyal, that you have their back, and that you want to just, you want to take care of your people. And I think that says, you know, a lot about, you know, who you are and your leadership style. So years ago, I got to tell you this, this has stuck with me for years and years, but I think this says a lot about the Ratchford family or DNA. But one time we were in church together, and your brother was visiting, and your brother actually, I call it open mic day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The first Sunday of the month is open mic day.
I'm waiting for someone to read some poetry, some homeschool rap.
Totally. It happens, right? So so your brother goes up, and I just loved like his kind of swagger up to the pulpit, and he goes up, and then he delivers one of the most compelling, like heartwarming thoughts that I've ever heard in a church in my life. And the idea was hold what you got.
Yeah.
Do you
that
remember?
one. Yeah, I do remember that one.
And he was talking about being a firefighter,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, you're right.
And he was talking about standing in a line of firefighters, and they're all holding, you know, this hose full of like
High pressure
water. And he's like, hold what you got. Like, don't worry about anything else. Just hold what you got. And he's referencing, you know, holding this fire hose. But the symbol was, to me, family, you know?
Yeah.
I could get emotional talking about this, but he was referencing, you know, hold what is good and family. And say more about that, because you have incredible daughters and a son. I actually just spent time with one of them on the phone recently, and I cried like a baby talking to her, because she has now become that next quote intern. I can tell you've coached her up, and Rachel, and just the questions she asked me and interviewed me about, I actually was emotional, because I was like, wow, this is the offspring of Davy. Like, this girl is going places. So talk more about this. Hold what you got.
Well, and that's very nice of you to talk about my brother that way. My brother is amazing. I love him. He's just a great human, and he's very eloquent when he wants to be. When he wants to get up and tell that story,
He wants to be.
He stole that one from me, by the way. It's trademark infringement.
Here we go.
No, my my family, we do like most things in Ireland. We deal with trauma and depression with humor. So we just make fun of everything, and nothing is sacred at our house completely. So I think what we've done with our kids is there's an opportunity in front of them. We open up a door, and those kids run through it. Which it's funny when you're raising kids, because I remember Rach and I we had differing opinions on parenting styles, right? And all I was like, if I raise nice humans, just good people, just people that I actually want to hang out with, like just nice humans.
Yeah.
Everything else will be good. If I can do that, everything else will be good. And there's always, high school will bring out the worst in people, and you'll just become just self-obsessed and arrogant and all the other things. But what's nice about when you get your kids out and they're going through college now, you see their personalities. I got some great kids, and we have, I think it's funny, the kids, sadly, with the jobs I've had, which is ridiculous because it shouldn't be this way in any way, but it's a bit of a spotlight. And that, those kids, I think they, especially just the amount, like I get grief and feedback, they get it just by nature of it, right? Like, and of being my kid, and they rolled with it and laughed with it all the time and had a really good time with it. But I think they just came out of things with a great sense of humor, and I think an ability to not take things too seriously, which I think we could all benefit from. So yeah, I'm really lucky. Rachel and I, we figured some stuff out with that. I mean, Leah at the U is doing amazing. Eva is at the U too. She's doing great. Ronan, we'll figure this one out with him. He's an amazing kid, but if he gets through high school without getting, punched in the face, something's wrong. So, and then Claire she's just the sweetest. So yeah, Kids are great. And I think being a parent is one of those things that you just stumble your way through all the way. Like, you just figure it out. You know, you can look around, and I deal with this a lot, right? You can look around and you can spend a lot of time being miserable and being upset about everything. Or you could turn that around and just find something to just find some joy in. And it is, look at what we get to do. Look at where we get to live and be. And so you could spend your energy just being negative all the time. And I can see how that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that space that they just end up living in, that just deep, dark well of depression that just doesn't seem there's any light at the end of the tunnel at all. And, I always, my father-in-law, Rachel's dad, said something really smart to me one time. He said, you can tell people all the time, like, how great they are, how amazing they are, and it's that words of affirmation. But if you've got something not right in life, that's just in one ear out the other, and it's never enough. The well is never deep enough for that, right? But if you give somebody something to do, if you give them a purpose, then they're necessary, right? Then they become like, hey, I need you to be here tomorrow at 8:00 and help me with this, or I need, like, if you give somebody something like that, a purpose, it can shake a lot of trial and tribulation off people's shoulders. And so I end up I think for my method is like, at least with kids and anyone else, is just like, well, you have a purpose, you have a value. And so I don't know. And plus you don't want, don't you want somebody to forgive you for when you mess up? Like, everybody makes a mistake, but it feels like you can't say sorry anymore.
Right.
And you can't apologize. It's like, we don't do everything right here. We make mistakes just like everybody else, and you can apologize, and just, you hope people go, that's okay. Like, we get it. It happens sometimes. And it's a weird world now, is you cannot make a mistake.
Yeah.
Totally. It's hard.
You live in well, the way how many employees do you have? I guess let's ask that first.
1,000.
You've got 1,000. I'm pretty sure I've heard you say multiple times that you have an open door policy. Any one of those 1,000 people could come knock on your door, as well as, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but any guest at Snow Basin can come knock on your door.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same concept of how you treated my son. Like, anyone is welcome. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. And I think that's at the core one of the things that you do really well around here and as a parent is it's open door.
Well, you have to find a solution.
Yeah.
You know, just be spinning all the way through, just trying to, I don't know, you ultimately get nowhere pretty quick. So, I'd rather get the feedback, right? You'd rather know. There's always, and especially when you get into this industry, right? Like the ski industry, I explained it this way years ago. When I got into Real Salt Lake and got that business up and going back in the day, you had this fan groups, and the fans in soccer are crazy, right? Like, they're just wild, but they stay in the stands, right? You don't play soccer anymore. Like, you're like me, you're like a little chubby, and you can't, you're gonna fall over if you go kick a ball. So, but you have a strong opinion, and you'd really get out there and you'd show them what's what, right? If you could. Here you have the same passion, but they're still doing the sport all the way up into their hundreds, right? They're 100 years old, they're still doing the sport. So, like, you take that passion and you have it intermingled with people doing the activity, and it could be their one bit of solace in their life, or one happy moment. Like, you don't mess with that ever. And so, yeah, you have passion. You have passion at the likes that which you don't ever will understand. There's not when the GMs get together, we have our own therapy session. It's like the insults, they are like the things you hear. Now, there's some great ones out there.
GM's Anonymous.
Yeah,
like,
when
it's
we get together,
legit.
it's like, oh, you were called what? You were told what? Like, I got one for you.
Do you feel like you've got it worse than the other GMs, though?
Well, here's what you do learn is don't build a house in the neighborhood where you have like 70% season pass penetration rate, because you'll get every bit of feedback known to man. One year the kids are amazing. They wanted to put, and I told them to not do this, but they wanted to put a box outside the house that said Snow Basin complaint box just outside the house.
That's really funny.
I thought it would be funny too, but anyway, it was a good time.
We're joking about this, but your kids do get asked, like, hey, what's up with your dad's, like, Why isn't it snowing more? Like literally, you're getting like these extreme, like,
Claire's
random comments,
she's
like that your dad is like on top of like God's snowfall.
Yeah, Claire is the Dan Pope of like Morgan Elementary School.
The white coat.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, she keeps saying, she's like, why do people think I know the weather? Like, I don't know the weather. And then Ronan, it was like, I think when we changed we made a critical error in somebody. We had a chef at the time that was like, I think we're gonna take up the cheese fries a little bit. We're gonna elevate them. That's the term you use in the business. If you didn't know, elevate. We're gonna elevate the cheese fries. And I was like, well, that's a bad idea. Just don't do it. Like, don't mess with the cheese fries. And it was like fancy like cheese sauce and not like just burnt cheese on fries. I was like, you're gonna get hell for that. And sure enough, it was
Don't
like
change the
It was like
bestseller.
free the cheese fries. It was like the campaigns that go on, and like the kids heard that, like, your dad just ruined Snow Basin. Cheese fries are different. I was like, okay, let's just change back to cheese fries, please.
I love this.
There's many of those stories. Makes it fun
Comical.
and interesting.
Such a loyal crew, which makes your business amazing, right?
Yeah.
To have that base, and yet the double-edged sword of that loyalty. You know, there's some rabid fans out there.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
It's great. I think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah. Davey, what makes you laugh harder than anything? Like when you go to that place where you're just like, I need to let my hair down. I need to laugh. Like where do you get your laughs?
I love like 10 people in a room, and the light's not on me, the light's on everybody else. And I just can sit and listen and relax. Because when you sit and listen, you hear the funniest stuff. Like especially in a setting like that, you can throw something out there and just get people talking. The funniest stuff for me is when people, like in that setting, and they're so vulnerable that something happens where you just laugh at them. But because we all are, have those moments, and we can just sit in a room and just laugh our faces off at each other.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing in the world. Like I love those opportunities. There just doesn't seem to be as frequent as they used to be. But I love it because like you can be in that moment and just laugh your face off at your favorite people in the world, and it doesn't hurt in any way. It's just building.
Yeah.
Because at any of those moments, Rachel and I have gone to a couple of comedy clubs recently, and there's some unbelievable, just amazing things that go at those. But I think the more natural, just my brother just makes me puke laughing. He's just ridiculous. My brother's he's like the Mr. Bean of the family. He's just brilliant. He's so smart, but just silly. And I love that combination, right? I love when you can just break it down and not worry at all about how you look or sound.
That's cool.
Yeah.
When the season is game on, I know that in any given day I can find you here. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're here. We've even tried to travel during the season with you, and you don't go. You're committed, which is cool.
Yeah.
In the off season, what do you do? How do you retool? How do you fill the canteen? How do you sharpen the saw?
I tan a lot. Just walk around.
Self-tanner?
Just tan a lot.
Are you that guy in the
I'm that
neighborhood?
guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
just out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
getting
walking
after
with
it.
no shirt on, and
Yeah.
people are like booing me.
I don't believe that.
No.
Speaking of being topless, tell us about your ink.
Oh,
I want to know a little bit more the symbology of.
yeah. Tattoos are just a very Irish thing. First off, for ever since forever, right? The heritage of Ireland. Ireland was settled by the Vikings. Dublin was settled by the Vikings 1,000 years ago. But the Druid and Viking lineages, everything. So my brothers are heavily tattooed, and we all have the same tattoo here. It's called a triskelion, and so we just built off of that. But this one here, I got done by a Russian who lives in Barcelona, who happened to be on tour in America, and he gave me a 4-day window, and I followed his stuff, and I really liked it, and so he came and did it in 4 days straight, which you shouldn't do.
Wow.
But that was part of it. It was like,
What do you do when a Russian makes you cry?
yeah, that's what happened. You just look away. Don't make eye contact. Because you never show fear ever to Russians.
Zero sympathy
No,
from him.
this guy was amazing, and he was tough though. Yeah, he was just like, just stop cry. was that? Stop crying. No numb cream for you. Like, you can do this. Don't be wimp. It was that.
It was that.
It was my best Drago. But it was, yeah. So there's a lot of Irish symbology throughout, but yeah.
That's cool. What else gives meaning to life for you? When you really think about your purpose, you mentioned that, but for others that you give a purpose to, but what's your purpose now? I mean, you're running the show here. Maybe we shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I know people are chasing you. I know big companies want you to be a leader. I think you're so talented and good at this, and you've had a run, and you've got a lot of runway left. So, what's your purpose now?
All those things are. Yeah, there's a lot of amazing things out there that you can do or could be a part of doing. I love that I live 15 minutes away, right? And that I love that there are things happening here now that like I can see my imprint on, right? That takes time to happen. I love that Snow Basin is getting the recognition it gets, right? That I think that's a part of it for me, because like I get that the experience changes, and that anytime anyone's experience changes, even though I think it's gotten better in so many ways, it's just different than what the people expect. I think that just, creates that challenge. And my job is to try get it to a place that there's a lot of still pride in, but it's also shining, right? Because it's meant to shine. Like this place is meant to just shine to the ski world. Because look, like it's amazing and it's beautiful and we have it. And I think I gave a talk the other night about this, and it was from my purpose is to, come to work to get everyone home safe. That's the biggest thing I can possibly come up with, is everything is about keeping our people safe, because it's a mountain, right? At the end of the day. So get home, go be with your family. Like that's the key thing. Be safe. And then, let it shine to the brightness it was always meant to. And that means for me, like getting people to come here and experience it. That means for my people to just grow with it and stay employed and stay loving it. Because there's people here that, I'll have a groomer who his plan is to retire at 50 years, right? And he's not too far off. And so we have people that have been here for a long time that have seen the history, play out. And I just love being a part of that story. That for a time I was able to do things. And again, this is a job that has so much feedback attached to it that like no one's gonna, thank you for getting the business to a healthy place to where it can self-sustain itself. They're just gonna tell you to, stop having powder days on a Saturday or something, because it's, and so it is what it is. And I don't worry about that anymore, because my job is the long-term health of the ski industry. And the long-term health in the ski industry is to get people skiing. And that's it. That's the objective for everybody, but to stay focused on, because our job is to keep that 13-year-old girl, which is an interesting demographic for us, because a 13-year-old girl stops going to skiing with their family, generationally what happens, right? And we're seeing that. There's a departure from the sport, from the activity. And so, yeah, you can be frustrated. I get it. You can look at things and lines and issues and growth in a certain factor, but ultimately, we need the sport to thrive. And when that doesn't happen, things change. And so for us, it's a balance of how to do that effectively. So that's what I'm trying to work on now. That's what I enjoy now, and doing it the best way I can. And as a leader, being in front of your own leadership skills, trying leaning into them as much as you can.
Yeah. What's the best leadership advice that you've ever been given?
Oh, I've been given so much good advice. Walk fast. I think so I had a leader in the ski industry early on, and he asked me a question. Bill Rock, the president of Vail Resorts. And if Bill ever does hear this, I don't know if he ever will, but he knows this already, right? I've thanked him for this already, but he asked me early on. He's an incredible GM, incredible leader in the ski industry, legendary. And he said he saw me as a rough young talent in the ski industry, but he saw me first off, which is like stand out a little bit, right? So he saw me and he said, we can do this fast or we can do it slow, like in your leadership, your growth. He's like, what do you want, fast or slow? And I was like, fast, because that's like all I do. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And he's like, you sure fast? And I said, yeah. And he goes, go home and change. You look like an idiot. And I was like day 3 in the ski industry. And I was like, I think I was wearing like khakis and like a tucked in like blue shirt. And he's like, it's not what we do. And I was like,
this is a private school, Davey.
He's like, what are you doing, nerd? He didn't say that. But he just was like,
he set you up.
What he was the polish. He just was like, I can take this and take my time, sweet old like polish, or I can chip away pretty hard and get it sanded down. And so one of his things, I was like, man, I'm in for it now. And so it was like day 5. He saw me walking across the plaza, and I was freezing. Right, I was like in the winter, my hands were in my pockets, and I was like tucked in and walking real slow across the plaza. And he's like, hey, come here a second. He's like, take your hands out and walk fast. Stop walking like that. And I was like, okay. And I here's what it was. I respected him. I loved the directness. I loved that he was taking the time and that he saw me. And I signed up for it. I said, yeah. I said I wanted the fast track, fast approach. So the reason the one walk fast sticks out more than anything is I just, if there's like this place, like it's not a sauntering resort, right? Like you gotta get it going. Like there's stuff to do, and so for me, it's a symbol of that leadership style, like of just trying to get to things, solve problems. Don't dilly dally, just get it done. Like why waste time if you have this precious gift? Do something with it. Yeah, and so walk fast. It was it's seared in my brain. Yeah.
What's the best advice you'd give?
Oh,
Davy Ratchford, 22-year-old intern, walks in and says, hey, give me some leadership advice.
So full circle on the Brene Brown on, the Man in the Arena piece, which, she, again, stole from Teddy Roosevelt. But that speech, that idea, because what I see way too much right now is the people in the stands. They're looking at the person in the arena just, sweat and toil, and they're just, throwing rocks and throwing shade and throwing stuff. And at least he's in the arena. At least he's in the arena doing it, giving it a shot, giving it a try. What are you doing? Where are you at? Like, show me something. And so I think, you'd be amazed. Don't be in the stands, be in the arena. And I've said this so many times to people. Like, I've been doing this stuff for a long time now, and I've had some amazing opportunities. You'd be shocked at how many people that don't raise their hand. Shocked. Like, just, if somebody came up to me and said, like, this is what people used to do in the boxing world, by the way. Like, the people that did well in the boxing world raised their hand for a fight. They said, yeah, I'll take that fight. I might lose, but at least I'm getting the rounds in, right? Like the people that made it were the ones willing to step in the ring, right? Like, and so I talked about it all the time. I was like, how many people have come up and said they want my job? They should be, right? You absolutely should be coming up to your boss, in my view, and saying, like, someday I want your, and if that boss is scared of that, how dumb are they, right? Like if you're not telling the person right above you that you want their job someday, or that your aspirations to run a ski resort, like, raise your hand. Like, the amount of people that don't, but yet they want something regardless, right? But it's like, I don't even know. Like, everybody works hard. If you're thinking like you get into this industry and like you're gonna stand out, well, everybody works hard. You don't get into this industry and do what we do unless it's like you're gonna, it's a mountain, right? Like, to get, like, it's not an easy job, and so you're gonna work hard, and you've got to stand out a little bit. So you're gonna raise your hand because you got to stand above the natural aspect of hard work, right? Like, that's an expectation. More is more. More is on top of that. And so raising your hand is saying, hey, I'm willing to take the shots. I'm willing to make that call. Not everyone's willing to make that call.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I've said on our podcast before that my success equation for me is breakneck work ethic, which is totally you, like, plus expertise. And then the great multiplier is that interpersonal risk, or people's willingness to take risk, to raise their hand, to put themselves out there. I've seen you continually do that, put yourself out there, take on the bigger, role, responsibility, and then figure out a way to do it, to rise to that. When you think about your success equation, so I sent this off to you and you responded, take us through it. Because there's some descriptor words in this, and we may need to do some calculus here with your equation, but it's awesome.
It may, and I can relate it to the story if you'd like, but I said home plus history equals destiny. Destiny divided by kindness equals chance, and chance times doggedness equals success. So home and history, right? Like there was a path laid out in history, right? Like, and I think about my parents and, the story of how they got to it, how that ultimately happened, which was, right, being converted to the church and having that happen in Ireland. That story is its own crazy, wild story about somebody showing kindness to my dad. My dad was drunk on the street, and a guy named Elder Sheriff found him, picked him up, and dragged him home, and that's like random, right? Just a complete random act of service. Found my dad, left him a Book of Mormon, wrote his name in it, left it, and years later, my dad was going to work, bored, didn't have a formal education, but he was a great reader, and he was at work, found a book in the back that was meant to be thrown away, and it was the Book of Mormon, and that was all that took. And the guy, Elder Sheriff, years later, I was on my mission back in Ireland, and looked up who he was, because I was like, well, that guy made a difference in my life. He's that hinge of history, right? Like, he showed my dad a little bit of kindness, so I found him years later. He was at an event. He had no clue. And I went up to him, and I said, hey, are you Elder Sheriff? He's like, yeah. And I go, and he knew I was from Ireland immediately. He goes, you're from Ireland? He's like, I lived in Ireland for a bit. And I was like, yeah, I know, actually. Can I tell you a story? I go, you were in Dublin, pissy, rainy night. You saw a drunk guy on the street, and he's listening to me. He has no clue what I'm saying. I said, you picked him up, fireman carried him to my house. That was my father. He read that book. You left him. You changed my life. That's the home plus history equals a certain destiny. The destiny divided by kindness, right? A man who just saw another man. So you don't think that when I was back in my mission in Ireland, I carried so many people home. I was like, I'm not even drunk. Get on my shoulder. Let's go. You're fine. You need help. You need help. You need me. Anyway, that's where that, like, you just, somebody that gives you a little bit of kindness, that creates a chance. So a chance for us was getting to America and, having this opportunity, and then, chance, once you get a chance, you put everything against it, so times it by doggedness. Because I was not the best soccer player. I was not the most handsome man. I was not the smartest student. I was, all of those things, but I could push, and I could pull, and I could make things happen. So that doggedness gets you a little bit, and then you just keep going. You got to keep moving forward, and that, that to me, if you just keep, it's like anyone. If you're a little bit scrappy, you'll get there, and just raise your hand, keep moving forward, look for every opportunity, and don't take anything for granted, and then leave the judgment at the door. Jesus, like, there's so much that you wish people saw that you did, and wish people never saw that you did, right? Ever. And you just want to look back and go, you know what? I know everyone around here is in the same boat. Everyone's doing the same thing, so I can sit in a room and, not worry about it. Like, that's what I want. Like, I want that peace of mind that, like, everyone's on an even playing field, and I just don't have the time or energy to look at somebody's life and say, well, they should have done it this way or that way, because everybody's life is different. Everybody's hand is different, and so for me, it was just play the hand you're dealt, and, keep trading in cards for better cards, and you'll figure it out. And that doggedness has kind of kept me rooted in a lot of the things that we do, I think, well here, and that means success to me.
It's awesome. I love the word doggedness. That says a lot. You know, we hear often just grit, hard work, and those things, but doggedness takes it to another level of just, you know, this tireless commitment. It's cool.
Was your greatest accomplishment here at Snow Basin convincing the holdings to allow employees to have facial hair?
Wait, was that a thing?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
No way.
When I learned that Davy was going to take on that challenge and try to change the culture, I thought, well, this is going to go one of two ways.
Interesting.
There goes
He's
the
going to
holding.
be employed for another month.
The holdings are amazing people. I didn't know. Like, what?
No, it's, the holdings are like the holdings are the greatest.
Yeah,
they're
they're-
amazing. They're just unbelievably good people. And but you know, part of the historic norm was like the Grand American. You know, it's just a
Yeah,
clean shaven
that's
face.
true.
So Sun Valley and Snow Basin, right? Like the ski industry is not that. Has never ever been that, right? And so it was definitely a cultural phenomenon. And I remember, you know, going to patrol was having a shaving party, but the day before work started, right? And I was like, this is weird. And I was learning a little bit about it. And I was always had a beard, right? And so I had to shave and I got in. And then what happened was I started, like literally it got to be I got to be an employees market, I should say. And we were offering great jobs and they were like, no, I'm not doing it if you make me shave. And that's when that started happening, I was like, whoa, like we're like fighting with one arm behind our back here. And so then what I really took, which was like, this is true, because it just was, I went to Smith's and I took a photo of the beard aisle, the men's grooming aisle.
I love this.
And I said, this is big business. Like, it's taken up an entire section of, like, it's not just a fad, right? It's not just this thing, like, it's a thing. Like, it's people have facial hair. And so, yeah, it was a battle, but we prevailed. And, it's still, what's not nice about it, obviously, it's still neat and tidy and it's still very respectable, but that bought me a lot of equity with the staff and allowed us to hire a lot of people. And, but I'm sure, this will come back to haunt me now at some point. It'll be revisited because of this podcast.
Oh man,
It was a really good thing.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun.
that's cool. What a win! That's a huge political win, right?
Yeah, of all the things. Exactly. And, that did something for one part of my
hair.
workforce. Some of the other workforce were like,
Yeah, it could've
do
cared.
something for us.
Yeah, what about
like
us?
that. It was, and that's.
Title IX here.
Yeah, when we look at like the programs that we do here, it's that one that comes up and everyone cheers for it, and I'm like, this is we just keep this one quiet. This is just, let's keep it on the down low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I alluded to it at the beginning of the podcast, but Snow Basin has such a part of my roots and life. And when I was 13 years old, I was ski racing here and crashed in a Super G race and tore my ACL. That was like the beginning of the end, of my ski racing. But from that time when I was 13 and so sad, about my life changing at that point, I vowed that day that someday when I was older, that I was going to stare at Snow Basin. And in my head, as a 13-year-old, I'm like, someday I'm going to own this resort. Like, I love this place. It was part of me. Fast forward, I'm, almost 47, and I'm building my home, the home that I've always wanted to build that faces Snow Basin.
Yeah.
This place is special, and Davy's the keeper of the special place, and it's cool. You're an awesome dude. When you think about now going forward, and you've said it a couple times, but you changed your stars, or you were able to impact your future by all the things you described. But the doggedness, I think, is very descriptive, in terms of what you've done. I feel similar, and this place has given me purpose. In a lot of ways that sounds so silly, but the life I have wanted to have and create for myself, my family, even the home that I have wanted to build is, of all things, tied to this mountain. What is it about this place that people just, I mean, I'm here on Christmas Eve, you know, I'm here, like, there's tradition tied to it. And do you sense that? Like,
yeah.
even in your commitment, because I think about this often, like, here's a leader who has had broad experience. He could go so many places, and yet he takes on this place that has so much meaning. So freestyle for a minute just about the mountain, because it is that. I mean, these incredible, you know, lodges, and it's stunning, it's gorgeous, but you've said it a few times now, like, you're the keeper of the mountain.
You know, it is, like you said, it is special. And I don't know if there's anywhere, like when you get off JP Lift, right? Just next time you're up here and you get, just do that for a minute. Just ski off that and just take a second to look around you. Like, that's just that scene is spectacular, and it's so unique. You know, there's places around this mountain that have that for me, that I've said this, that I you know, talk about mental health. You mentioned that earlier. There is a crisis, I feel, of like some people just need a place, wherever that is, whether it can be a room in your home, right? It can be wherever, it could be outside on the swing, wherever it is, right? I had a moment like that. I was like, there's stressful stuff, right? Like, there's some real stressful stuff. And it was, I can't remember, this was like 2 years ago. And I went up early, and we were looking at something early, so it was before we opened, and the sun it was a beautiful morning, and I was at the top of Strawberry, kind of knew where the new lift is, and I was alone, and I had a moment. Like, I just had that moment. I don't know what else to say. It was like breakdown, kind of just like sit on your butt and just look around and like just take a lot of feelings in. I won't get into detail about what the substantive nature of it, but it was therapeutic. And I know that this place can be that for a lot of people. And because it's done that for me, it's done that for many other people. And the only thing is, like, you can enjoy it. You know, the structure that we have to try and make this work for everybody it's kind of give a little to get a lot, right? Because to have those moments, I've always looked at it going like, we got to give a little bit to get this thing to be a viable, good business, right? So that it can be a lot to a lot of people. And I think for the longest time it's my little thing, and it's my little therapy. But the reality is like, a lot of people need that therapy. And I'm glad, because if I'm looking at it right now, and there's a positive trend in overall visitation, but years ago, like, that was not the case. I mean, like, the case was the ski industry was losing people, and we need to stem that, right? For the long-term health of the ski industry, we've got to have family skiing, we've got to have people skiing, we've got to have that 13-year-old girl keep skiing and not go do something else, right? We need that to happen. And so now, if I can balance that out and do that and get people those moments, like, I just think it's very worthwhile to disconnect from all of those things out there. And again, it doesn't have to be skiing, right? Just do something that gets you out into nature, to get you unpacking some of those things and just shedding them off of you and finding some purpose out there. And again, it's not to get too existential about the ski industry, but like, it can be that. I've seen you on the mountain. I've seen you halfway up the mountain going uphill, which is its own madness. And yeah, huffing and puffing, but you're finding yourself in that moment for sure.
Yeah.
And that is, Preston, you get it from the ski patrol side, right? And there's people that have their absolute best moments and their absolute most brutal moments. And there is not a shortage of emotion that goes along with that in this world. And we spend a lot of time with our patrol who deal with this stuff pretty heavily. I have a therapist that, like, I absolutely like. There's not a playbook in the world for how to turn to page 17 and how to be a general manager and deal with this issue that you could never have thought of, right? Ever being a thing. And Now that book is pretty full. Like after a couple of years, you're like, man, we've seen some stuff. But it's an adventure, and I love it. Like, man, I love it. Like the change, the changing nature of it all it's infuriating and it's challenging at the same time. It's like, your soccer team just not playing well and losing. And you're like, where's the snow? Like, everything's ready to go. And then you have a year like last year and you go, okay, you should stop the snow. Let's just slow it down a little bit. It's just a wild ride.
Yeah.
I could echo everything everyone's saying about this mountain, but I've had my highs here and I've had my lowest of lows here too. My worst life flighted out of here. But I've told my family, and I need to put this on record, and I need you to hear this too. When I move on, I've asked for my ashes to be placed in a hand charge and thrown by Snow Basin Ski Patrol into a certain area, and I just want a plaque on a tree. That's all I want.
Wow.
Yeah, that's. I know that's pretty morbid and weird, but
No.
this is where I want to be buried. Like, this is where I want to.
You want a hand grenade of your ashes over the mountain.
I love.
Yep.
I love.
There's a certain spot it's got to go to.
Wow.
Yes.
So
See,
what?
this is
so-
what the place means.
Hey,
Yes,
if you're ordering it up, I'm gonna order it. So
Okay.
my kids.
Tom,
know.
how do you want to die? Is that what you're talking about?
You could put me in an
for our
avalanche.
listeners, so off camera, JT, who's my oldest son, who makes all of this happen, super talented. Since he was old enough to ride high enough on this mountain, I have taken him to what I call the sacred trees. And there's literally 3 trees, on the mountain near Moonshine. And he knows that someday I want at least part of my ashes sprinkled among those trees, I mean,
I believe
There you go.
I believe there's many of ashes around these mountains.
I've got to think there are.
Yeah. We listen. Those things can happen.
I love it.
I think. Yeah. I don't know about the plaque. The plaque might. You know what that's
It'll
gonna
be
happen.
a bootleg plaque. We're
Okay.
gonna have to sneak it up there and
Yeah.
hide it in the trees. somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. There's some things I've seen around this mountain. I'm like, oh, didn't know that was there. Well, that's interesting.
special.
It is a
place,
special place. Yeah.
for sure. What's next? Here.
Well,
You're a couple weeks out from launching this place into the 23-24 season. What are you
Yeah.
looking forward to?
I think that there's some new things this year that are really exciting. That new Demoisy lift is a game changer for us. That's amazing. It's I think I was going back. I think it was approved back in like 2008, right? Like it's always
Wow.
been on the plans, right, to do. And so to get that over the finish line and get it to the people, I think that's what I'm really, really proud of. Those are not easy to do, and but it will be ready mid-December, and that's what that does. I think the strawberry area of Snow Basin is incredible, but I think there's a certain part of our market that doesn't get to experience it, and I think partly of that is because of the way the lift is and the current gondola that's out there. So with this chair being able to get people in and out of that area much easier, I'm really excited about that, because I think that spreads people out. I think that changes the flow of the mountain a little bit, so it's going to be interesting to see what changes that make. We keep investing in parking because that's just what we do, and it's we're the most accessible ski resort out there and very popular right now and lots of accolades. And ultimately parking, we still have so much of our issue is one person per car. It's such a challenge. So, increase the carpool. We've increased UTA every year that I've been here on public transportation. And then the new bathrooms. We do bathrooms
Really well.
really well, like really, really well. And so those are going to be, I think those will be quite popular for people because of the location of them.
Yeah.
And then there's a new food option out in Strawberry that we'll do, a new heated plaza, kind of like you have out here at Earl's. And then, I think I'm excited. The other thing is I have a lot of, new manager level employees that have got promoted. And I have some new senior team people that have got promoted through the ranks. And we're at that point now where we're seeing that, leadership development growth within, and really cool to see them step into leadership roles.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool. Freestyle. Close us off any way you want to finish it. Anything that you've thought about recently that's important to you, people you want to give a shout out to.
You know, I'll say this. Rachel, my wife, has been through a lot in the ski industry, right? And career-wise. Like she did, she went through this. I remember years ago, right? Speaking of this whole topic of like imposter syndrome and like all the things. Man, she went through a lot. She went through one where I came home because I could see my career divergence happening where I was like, okay, now they're asking me to do a lot more. And like my talent is going to wear out pretty quick, and like the anxiety of more, right? Like they're expecting more and I have to do more. When I came home one night, this was, I think it was prior to taking the Real job, if I remember right. And so it was a big job. It was a big thing, right? And I was like, you know, I think I just want to be a cop. And like, you know, cops are honorable. Irish people are cops. Like we have a thing with cops. I don't know. Like I should just be a cop. I should just maybe just go down that road because like they save lives. And I was seeing what was happening. I was like having a bit of a panic attack of like, you know, not that job's easier, but I just didn't want the pressure of leadership and the pressure of all that stuff that I knew was out there. I knew it was on the doorstep. I knew it was coming. And didn't have a great moment at that point. Like I was definitely self-imploding, and Rachel's just riding that wave with me going like, okay, well, you kind of got to do life here, right? You got to go and like be a big boy and do big boy things and, you know, let's go. And so, I mean, that plus a countless other experiences of just, you know, being willing to move around and take the hard tasks, because the ski industry, right, I've been a part now of some amazing things, but it required us to move around. It required the kids to take some challenges on. And so, yeah, I'd be remiss if you don't sit back and, you know, realize every Christmas morning, you know, any leader in the ski industry gets up early and they're on the mountain, right? And you work every holiday, and you end up finding a way to love it. For, you know, the first couple of years before it got crazy, like Rachel would come up with me on Christmas Day and she'd hand out stuff to all the employees and, you know, just try to make it, you know, make it all work. And then we wake up early and we have our own traditions now, and no one's complaining. We actually love it. That's what's interesting about it, is like we don't ask for any sympathy or pity. That we love it. Like we're happy. We wake up, we have Christmas early, we get up to work, we feed all the employees here, we have a great time working, and generally everyone's in a good mood on Christmas Day, right? Like you hope. And we have a great day on the mountain, and we thank all the employees, and some people, you know, it becomes that tradition. And then you go home and you spend the rest of your day, and it actually works out great, but it's different than most, right? And so Rachel has had to change her traditions and norms to fit into this lifestyle, as our friends and family and others, right? Like it's just what you do. We don't travel over the holidays. We don't travel over winter. But man, as soon as May comes along, shirts off, bro. Getting that tan.
That Irish skin needs some sun.
I've become translucent.
Davy's in the yard again.
Yeah. He's not mulching, is he? Is he mulching? Rachel is amazing. And, you know, I don't, obviously, like the stories earlier about my parents, like you know, they did the hard sacrifice, right? For sure. Like, for sure. And so all of this is, you know, it's just because they took that first chance, and then I took every chance after, right? Like that's how it works. No, I'm the luckiest little kid in the world. Like that's, if you don't have that gratitude, then missing out on something. What about you guys? What makes you? What's up with what's this podcast doing? I mean, who's listening to this, by the way? I have no idea. Is it just for us? Because I've had a good time talking to you.
It is just for us.
The four of us.
It's therapeutic for the four of us.
Yeah.
JT's getting a life lesson here. Listen to everyone. Yeah. That's good.
Every guest.
Yeah. No, look, we started Brain Stoke a year ago or so, because we wanted to impact, ideally, you know, young kids, teens, lives, let them know that they matter. There's more to life than the pain they're experiencing in junior high and high school. And, you know, there's ways to find happiness, you know, even through the struggle of it all. So
what we hope, Davy, is that the Davy who is in school right now, who gets asked, hey, didn't you wear that shirt yesterday? Mm-hmm. That he hears you somehow and says, I can do this, you know, instead of going to social media and having it reinforce like I don't have all the coolest stuff yet.
Yeah.
You know?
And by the way, I think it's a trend now for kids to wear the same shirt 2 days in a row. Because my 16-year-old privileged kid, I swear he wore the same damn shirt yesterday. I swear I just saw that. Full circle. No, I think if you are that, you know, I think that's brilliant, right? If you can speak to kids in a medium that, like, you know, and I would say that, and you guys know how to get a hold of me, but if there's anyone that would ever try to find out or learn more about, especially that sports world, right, and that world, there's definitely avenues to progress and get better. But yeah, I think every kid that's if there is a kid that's listening in, if there's that lesson is, don't worry if you're the smelly kid that has one shirt or two shirts. Just just look ahead of you. You'll be all right.
It seems like, to finish on that thought, maybe share your last, comments on this, but you use that, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, to a certain degree, those comments, those things became the chips that you put on your shoulder and you operationalize those. They became the fuel for you to have those jobs through high school and to say, I'm not going to let the 2-shirt, day define what I do going forward, and there's something to that, that doggedness that you had with you. And man, I'm praying that, and kids are not going to listen to over an hour in a podcast, but if they hear you talk about that you use the doggedness, inside you, that was fueled by some of those things to do and become what you are today, this is a win.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I guess I look at like ultimately, why not you? I said it before, but why not? Like, there's nothing. I do think there's some people that maybe don't have the same opportunities. I get that, and I obviously didn't. But as soon as that came, like, I jumped on it, right? Like, whatever. I think that's it. Have your eyes open for like some sort of opportunity. I think I spent so many years just not being, I don't know, it's going to sound bad. I think I spent so many years not being as grateful as I should have been, right? Like, for years I had that moniker, right? Like, of the poor kid that, I used that as fuel, right? I can't give you the amount of times I've used that for fuel, right? To tell the story and to move it forward. And then it became an excuse, right? And I was like, well, like, things wouldn't work out because not everything's rosy and everything's perfect. Things wouldn't work out. It's like, well, you're only, maybe that's okay. And then you just have to. I don't think I was grateful enough for the things that were happening to me, and I wasn't grateful enough for the history that I had, because I think I carried a lot of shame from that. Like, there's a little embarrassment that stuff can come from that. Like, I wasted way too much time on that period of my life, and wasn't sit back and be great. I think I hit it, and I think you go through all those different stages, and I think ultimately it comes back down to like what we've talked about before. Like, you try to live a life and surround yourself with zero judgment on yourself or any other people, and just, give it your best. Like, absolutely give it your best, and just don't look at anybody else and think that, they're doing it wrong. Maybe they're doing it absolutely right for their situation. And yeah, I don't know if I have a big bow on it, except I'm a work, like, man, remember we just all that work in progress? Like, 3 years ago, here, we were just in a very different spot, looking at things very differently, and then you have a couple of different seasons, and what is that? That's the thing with seasons. They just, every year there's something new coming up, and like, we have no idea. Like, right now, it's way too warm outside. Like last year, I was like, this is gonna be amazing. Like, it's just, you gotta just be able to roll with what's coming right in front of you.
It's awesome. Thanks for having us.
You guys are great.
You've had your daily dose.